Mr. Sergeant-at-Arms,
The Honorable Peter Shumlin, Governor of the State of Vermont.
it is now my distinct honor to present to you the Governor of the State of Vermont, the Honorable Peter E. Shumlin.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chief Justice, distinguished guests, my fellow Vermonters, thank you. It has been such a privilege to serve as your governor over the past year. Our partnership of community, courage, and common purpose that has empowered us through the unprecedented challenges dumped upon us by Mother Nature, combined with our willingness to make the tough choices necessary to grow jobs and economic opportunities for all Vermonters, has made us stronger. I want to recognize a few of the thousands of Vermonters who've made us so proud this last year and serve as symbols of Vermont at its best. We are so grateful to the dedicated women and men of our armed forces, whose service both overseas and during the Irene recovery has been exemplary. Please join me in honoring our Vermont troops and our Vermont National Guard, led by General Michael Doobie. Thank you so much. Thank you. We deeply appreciate your service. The magnitude of devastation from Tropical Storm Irene astounded General Doobie and me as we landed in community after community in the days after the storm. I knew that we needed effective, experienced leaders to help us cut through the bureaucracy and rebuild at breakneck speed as we raced winter weather. I am so grateful to our Irene recovery officer, Neil Lunderbill, who took a leave from his job to join our team in Vermont's time of need. Neil, all Vermonters, join me in thanking you for your selfless service to the state you love. Thank you, Neil Lunderbill. Rosie Howard. Thank you. Stay up. Thank you, Mayor. You'll get me for that later. This has been an especially tough year for Vermont's local government leaders. I want to acknowledge 4 of our storm-tested, hard-working mayors: Tom Lozon from Barrie, Marty Manahan from St. Albans, Chris Loris from Rutland, Mary Hooper from Montpelier. Please stand so that we can acknowledge your service to Vermont. Thank you so much. Thank you. I also want to acknowledge an outstanding legal mind and a pioneer in civil rights who made history this year by joining the Vermont Supreme Court. Justice Robinson, thank you for your service to justice in Vermont. Today, I report to you on the state of the greatest state in the nation, one that has demonstrated over the course of the past year what it means to be united as one community to overcome tragedy. In the wake of a deep recession, 2 spring storms, and a tropical storm that devastated our infrastructure and exacted an unimaginable toll on the lives of thousands of Vermonters, I can tell you without reservation or exaggeration, the state of our state is strong, Vermont strong. From Halifax to Hartford, Wilmington to Waterbury, Roxbury to Richmond, the hundreds of individual actions of bravery and courage in the days and months after Irene will be forever etched in my memory. I want to share one of them with you. Rutland Mayor Chris Loris, who like most local leaders, was working long days without sleep after Irene, called me every few hours with progress updates on the unfolding tragedy, the search for Mike Garofano and his son, who went missing during the storm. Route 4 was nothing but a stream bed in sections where roadway once ran. And I came in by National Guard helicopter to join Mayor Loris and give son Tommy Garofano a bear hug from all Vermonters. Tommy's dad, Mike Sr., grew up in Rutland and went to work for the city for over 30 years, rising to become the manager of the water plant, a job to which he dedicated his life. Mike and his wife, Sally, had 2 sons, Mike Jr., known also as Little Mike, and Tommy. Mike also had a son, Robbie. Robbie lost his life in a tragic accident in 2010. And little Mike and Tommy's tight bond with their mom and dad helped them all in the face of such extraordinary adversity. On the evening of Irene, with Mendon Brook raging, Mike and little Mike braved through the storm to the water plant to check the inlet valve that Mike had closed the previous day to make sure that polluted water would not enter the city's reservoir. It was a risk, but they were determined to protect Rutland's water supply. With Mendon Brook carving craters where solid ground once stood, the banks gave way, sweeping them both away. Mike's body was retrieved the next day, but the search for little Mike went on for weeks. While Sally was comforted by family and friends, Tommy heroically joined the search and rescue effort, digging through mountains of Irene's debris, looking for his brother. Today, on behalf of our state, we honor two Vermont heroes, Michael Garofano and Michael Garofano Jr., with the promise that we will never forget. Joining us in this chamber are Sally and Tommy Garofano. To Sally and Tommy, and the families of the 6 other Vermonters who lost their lives as a result of Tropical Irene, our admiration and support will never cease. Thank you on behalf of all Vermonters. As Mayor Loris and I gave what comfort we could to Tommy on that day at Mendon Brook, something else happened that characterizes Vermont strong. With Route 4 shut down and community after community isolated islands where roads and bridges once served, brothers John and Doug Casella had an idea. Doug said, "Governor, you get the Department of Motor Vehicles to lift the ban on hauling heavy equipment across what's left of our roads and get us permission to retrieve some of the rock and gravel that Irene washed from our roads into our streams. And we'll partner with other private contractors like Belden Company, Markowski Excavating, Moser Excavating, Wilk Paving, the Agency of Transportation, and the National Guard. And we can have Route 4 open in 3 weeks." Now, as soon as I got high enough in the chopper to actually have cell service in Vermont, I called Secretary Searles, Secretary Markowitz, and Commissioner Ide. And within hours, our team applied Doug's request not just to Rutland, but to the whole state of Vermont. And guess what? Guess what? 9 days later, Route 9 from Brattleboro to Wilmington to Bennington, open. 18 days later, Route 4 from Woodstock, Mendon, Rutland, open. And today, all roads destroyed by Irene, open. You know, we've got members of Team Casella, Belden, Wilk, Moser, Markowski are here today. And I would like to ask you to please stand. You represent many Vermont construction companies who, along with AOT and the Vermont National Guard and the Guard troops from around the country, rebuilt us Vermont strong, and Vermont honors you. Stand up, team. We need you. Thank you so much. In this public-private partnership with Winter Looming, we did it right with Vermont ingenuity, fiscal prudence, and common sense. We rebuilt for 35 cents on a dollar, bringing total estimated damage down to $250 million for state roads and infrastructure and $140 million for town roads. Thanks to the skill of the best congressional delegation in America, Senator Leahy, Senator Sanders, and Congressman Welch, the Leahy Amendment became law, ensuring that Vermont will get the federal aid we need in our time of need, reducing our projected cost to the general fund to $30 million. Please join me in recognizing the great work of Senator Patrick Leahy, Senator Bernie Sanders, and Congressman Peter Welch, and our partners at FEMA. There are two lessons that we must seize from our experience over the past 4 months. The first lesson is clear. If, after Irene, we can rebuild over 500 miles of damaged roads and 34 bridges for a fraction of the normal cost, with dwindling federal resources in our future, we must apply those same lessons to maintaining and rebuilding Vermont's transportation infrastructure from this point forward. We will build faster, smarter, and more economically. Instead of having state workers bunkered in their individual agencies processing paper, we broke down the silos, formed a partnership between AOT, ANR, private contractors, and municipalities. Contracting procedures were modified. Access to stone and gravel was expedited. Dangerous debris was removed from brooks and streams as engineers worked together with environmental experts to get the job done. Projects that pre-Irene would have taken years got done in months. Environmental quality was preserved, taxpayer dollars were saved, and roads and bridges were built to withstand the assault of extreme weather that looms even larger in our future. The second lesson comes from the remarkable tenacity of the hundreds of small businesses that were drowned in water and mud, putting hard-working Vermonters out of work overnight. A year ago at this podium, I pledged the following. My jobs agenda will expand the ability of emerging entrepreneurs and businesses to get access to capital when they need it most. When Lieutenant Governor Phil Scott and I traveled the state together, reaching out to hundreds of small businesses, hundreds of them shuttered by triple storms, our message to our job creators was, we stand with you, we stand by you, and the state of Vermont will do its part helping you to get back on your feet. Partnering with the Vermont Development Economic Authority, we created an emergency low-interest loan program that, with minimal bureaucracy and maximum effectiveness, got credit of up to $100,000 to crippled job creators within days. More than 340 businesses and farms were granted loans totaling $15.3 million. With liquidity, Vermont ingenuity, and hard work, miracle after miracle happened as business after business reopened. Bartleby's Bookstore in Wilmington, open. Leaders Home Center in Brattleboro, open. Simon Pierce, Windsor, open. The Red Toy Wagon Company, Woodstock, open. Windhall Market in Bonneville, open. Sunrise General Store in Bridgewater Corners, open. Walt Goldfinger in Northfield, open. Nelson's Hardware, right in here in Barrie, open. The Rochester Cafe, open. American Flatbread in Waitsfield, open. Positive Pie, just down the street, open, and the list goes on and on. The lesson for Vermont government in helping to grow jobs in Vermont is pretty simple. Getting credit to entrepreneurs when they need it most grows prosperity and grows jobs. In fact, there's nothing stand in the way of Vermont's job creators that cannot be made right by a partnership with state government that's built on a foundation of common sense, trust, and expedited risk capital for businesses when others won't lend to them. Vermont's response to Irene perfectly illustrates the strong state of our state. Perhaps the greatest lesson we can take from the challenges of the previous 4 months is that despite Irene's devastation, despite our heartbreak and our pain, we are bound by a common purpose. We're also bound by tragic loss. To the hundreds and hundreds of Vermonters who lost so much, lost their houses, lost their belongings, lost the land that their homes rested on, or the land that they tilled, we stand with you in the long recovery that lies ahead to help you close the gap between your hopes and dreams that were washed away and the paltry $30,200 maximum reimbursement afforded you by the federal government. While we know that we can never make you whole, our resolve as your neighbors and friends to continue to help you rebuild your lives is as strong as ever. So we're so grateful to everyone who stepped up and contributed, from the students at Moortown Elementary School who passed a jar in class, to countless church groups, nonprofits, and private companies who've contributed millions of dollars. Vermont musicians like Fish and Grace Potter held concerts that raised over $1 million. And Tony Parmelo, who just recently pledged an extraordinarily generous $1 million to the Vermont Disaster Relief Fund at a youthful 93. Tony is here today, and Tony, we thank you for your generosity to the state of Vermont. Thank you, Tony. Vermonters have been so generous, but we have many miles to travel before we rest and many dollars to raise before we sleep. In that spirit, we are pleased to introduce our new Vermont Strong license plates, which can be purchased at VT Strong Vermont Gov. If you purchase this plate for the front of your vehicle, the proceeds will go to the Vermont Disaster Relief Fund to help those who still need us. So buy one and put it on the front of your rig. Vermont Strong. You know, I could devote this entire speech to the recovery because I do believe that Tropical Storm Irene represents a defining moment in Vermont's history. But now is our moment to apply that same courage, strength, and ingenuity to our most pressing need, growing jobs and prosperity for all Vermonters. Having witnessed what Vermonters can get done when we get together, I've never been more optimistic about our ability of getting tough things done and helping us grow jobs in 2012. If we can rebuild destroyed roads and bridges in less than 4 months, we can meet my promise of connecting every corner of Vermont to high-speed internet and vastly improved cell service by the end of 2013. In the past year, we've connected 7,500 locations and installed 1,600 miles of fiber in our ongoing effort to connect Vermont. We're going to keep our promise of closing Vermont's connectivity gap, and we're going to grow jobs as we connect up. If we can rebuild our transportation infrastructure at 35 cents on the dollar, we can lead the nation in arresting the skyrocketing cost of health care that's hurting job growth and picking the pockets of our struggling middle class. Your Green Mountain Healthcare Board is hard at work building that system. If we can reopen hundreds of flooded businesses in 14 weeks, we can transform Vermont into the innovative education leader where from early childhood education to higher education to continuing education, we train employees for the jobs of our future. In my budget address next week, in addition to addressing the challenges and opportunities of replacing our state hospital and state complex, I will propose significant state investments in higher education and dual enrollment, all aimed at making Vermont students even more competitive and creating opportunities for employers to recruit the employees that they are now seeking. We must do that together. If we can turn the lights back on in just 3 days for over 70,000 utility customers, thanks, by the way, to the hard work of our utilities, we can create jobs by harnessing the sun, wind, water, forests, and fields to produce community-generated renewable power. We have made progress in the past year, but we need to keep building. This session, I'll propose requiring an affordable and achievable renewable energy portfolio standard that sets a goal of obtaining 75% electricity from renewables in 20 years, and we must get that done. I'll also recommend that Vermont build on our standard offer program so that we can keep building renewables for Vermont's future. If we can reconnect hundreds of miles of washed-out dirt roads in just days so that milk trucks can get to our dairy farmers who had to dump milk during the storm, we can create jobs by fueling the renaissance in locally grown Vermont food. This year, we'll continue to focus on our efforts on farm-to-plate, farm-to-fork, buy local, farmers markets, while addressing the challenge of producing enough Vermont-grown milk to meet the needs of our value-added dairy companies that are springing up all over Vermont. If we can build a partnership between state and municipal government to keep our citizens safe and secure, we can work together to address two of the most serious problems we face: winning the war on recidivism and stemming the epidemic abuse of prescription drugs, particularly opiates, that are driving crime and destroying the lives of too many of our neighbors. Next week, I'll also propose changes to our prescription drug monitoring system. Access to the system by law enforcement needs to recognize an individual's right to privacy while giving law enforcement the tools they need to track down abuse so that we can fight prescription drug epidemics. This growing problem is so frightening because FDA-approved prescription drugs, and opiates in particular, are easy to get, but many of them are just as addicting and dangerous as street heroin and crack cocaine. Since taking office a year ago, I have visited countless businesses throughout the state, and we've met small business owners from Bo Muller-Moore, who had a simple idea to put the phrase "eat more kale" on T-shirts and now works 14-hour days to fill orders from across the country, to Breyer and Adam Alpert of Biotech, a global leader in medical applications technology. I'm so optimistic about our jobs' future, and every day I see evidence of Vermont's entrepreneurial successes. But we have a lot more work to do. Too many Vermonters continue to struggle to make ends meet for themselves and for their families. But to those who say that Vermont's a bad place to do business, that our bold policies for job growth aren't getting results, that our optimism about Vermont's jobs' future is not matched by progress, I ask you to consider these facts. Our unemployment rate at the peak of the recession was 7.3%. Today, it's among the lowest in America at 5.3%. Chittenden County now enjoys the fourth lowest unemployment rate in America. Over the past year, new jobs in Vermont grew by 62% over the prior year, more than any other state in the nation. And Vermont ranked second in a recent study on how well states use tax breaks and economic development subsidies to actually create jobs, and this legislature gets the credit for that. Now, if you don't believe the data, I invite you to join me on the road, reaching out to Vermont's jobs creators. Here are just a few that I visited over the past year. In Newport, Bill Stenger is working on several projects in Orleans County, in addition to building a world-class Four Seasons resort at Jay Peak that employs hundreds of Vermonters. Bill and his partners are bringing ANC Bio and 4 other new projects that represent $350 million worth of investment that'll produce 3,000 direct and indirect jobs in the heart of the Northeast Kingdom. In Rutland, GE continues to expand, one of the largest GE manufacturing plants of jet engines in the nation for both commercial and military aircraft. In Castleton, Hubbardton Forge is on track to meet its goal of doubling sales in just 5 years. In Barrie, SBE Electronics is up and running with capacity to produce parts for 100,000 plug-in hybrid vehicles within 3 years, and they're shipping all over the world, including to China. In Essex, Green Mountain Coffee Roasters is building a new plant that will employ hundreds of Vermonters and help fuel the exceptional growth to one of America's most successful companies. Next door in Essex Junction, IBM continues to innovate and create jobs in the IBM plant that's thriving and adding jobs, is now one of the world's largest producers of semiconductor technology, employing 6,000 Vermonters. In Arlington, Mack Molding continues to hire and expand. In Vergennes, Goodrich is hiring. In Essex Junction, Revision Eyewear, I was there last week, is thriving and has developed a new combat helmet that, if adopted by the U.S. military, will allow them to vastly expand manufacturing in Vermont. Up in Newport, Louis Garneau will be building new facilities to expand manufacturing jobs there. From the Massachusetts line To the Canadian border, companies that opened this year include Commonwealth Yogurt in Brattleboro, Farmstead Cheese in Woodstock, Swan Valley Cheese in Swanton, and many other small value-added agricultural businesses are growing their customer base, creating jobs, and adding vitality to a dairy industry that I believe is poised for revitalization. My administration and I commit ourselves every day to attracting entrepreneurs and growing jobs, one job at a time. And we slowly but surely will grow our way out of the most painful recession in our nation's history. Let me say one last word about staying competitive and creating jobs. Our tax policy has a direct impact on our jobs' future. You may have heard me say this before, but Vermont's problem is not that our taxes are not high enough. It is that they are too high. I'm a proud and strong supporter of Vermont's progressive income tax structure, the most progressive in the country, where unlike the federal government, we require our wealthiest citizens to pay their fair share of income tax. But we cannot correct the failures of Washington from the State House in Montpelier, and we must be always mindful that every day we compete with our neighboring states for the same jobs. Therefore, I remain determined not to increase broad-based taxes on Vermonters as we begin to see signs of modest economic growth. Representative Pearson's not clapping because it's his birthday. Looking back on the last year, we have so much to be thankful for and so many opportunities ahead. As we enter the new year, partisanship continues to paralyze our democracy in Washington, D.C. At a time when many of America's cities and communities beyond Vermont's borders often seem more divided than united, our little state has distinguished itself. Indeed, there is nothing wrong with America that could not be made right by the ingenuity and caring spirit of the people of the state of Vermont. By continuing to set aside what divides us and finding common ground to unite us, we will rebuild our state better than the way Irene found us, while making the bold decisions that will lead us to continued job growth and a bright future for Vermont. Let's get back to work. Thank you so much. Thank you.